Hello, everyone. This is Pastor Ryan Pronzinski of Christ Lutheran Church in Michigan Center, Michigan. And this is my Chair Chat daily devotion for Wednesday, August 26th, 2020. Peace be with you. These video devotions are intended to help you engage your life of faith during this time of pandemic. And so with engagement in mind, as I've been doing in every video, I encourage you to leave constructive comments, questions, or prayer requests in the comment section below. And I promise that I will get to these in the following videos. I also encourage you to do this because you can engage with one another in this way. And when we learn together, we learn more and we learn best. When we engage together, we engage more and we engage best. And so even if you don't feel so moved to engage in this specific space, I encourage you to do it in others, whether it be in conversation with those around you, sending this link to someone you know and talking on the phone, meeting in person and doing it somewhere else, or even journaling, for goodness sake, is a helpful practice if you're by yourself. But just find ways to engage meaningfully with these texts and with these thoughts presented in the video. The readings that are put forth each day in this video come from the Daily Revised Common Lectionary, which is a church calendar reading schedule and can be found online. The readings for today, which are in the description below, are as follows. We have Psalm 18, verses 1 through 3, and verses 20 through 32, which I will not be reading in this video, but for details, please see August 24th's video from Monday. We also have today Isaiah chapter 28, verses 14 through 22, and Matthew chapter 26, verses 6 through 13. Let's see. Now, of course, before I get to the readings themselves, as always, I like to invite anybody out there who watches these videos to come and join us at Christ Lutheran Church for the live stream of our worship services, which we have been doing with Facebook Live. The link to our Facebook Live services in the past, as well as the ability to watch the most current live stream, is in the description below. Just click on the link or copy and paste it in your browser. And we do our live streams at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we would love to have you. This Sunday, August 30th, 2020, we will be doing outside worship again, so if you're in the Michigan Center area and you'd like to join us outside, please feel free to come and do that with mask and safe social distancing. Bring your lawn chair or sit in your car, whatever you'd like to do. All that being said, we move on to the first reading, which is from Isaiah chapter 28, verses 14 through 22, and reads as follows. Therefore hear the word of the Lord, you scoffers, who rule this people in Jerusalem. Because you have said, we have a covenant with death, and with Sheol we have an arrangement, an agreement. When the overwhelming scourge passes through, it will not come to us. For we have made lies our refuge, and in falsehood we have taken shelter. Therefore thus says the Lord, see, I am laying in Zion a foundation stone, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. One who trusts it will not panic. And I will make justice the line, and righteousness the plummet. I think in other translations it's the plumb line. Hail will sweep away the refuge of lies, and waters will overwhelm the shelter. Then your covenant with death will be annulled, and your agreement with Sheol will not stand. When the overwhelming scourge passes through, you will be beaten down by it. As often as it passes through, it will take you. For morning by morning it will pass through, by day and by night, and it will be sheer terror to understand the message. For the bed is too short to stretch oneself on, and the covering too narrow to wrap oneself in it. For the Lord will rise up as on Mount Perazim, he will rage as in the valley of Gibeon, to do his deed. Strange is his deed, and to work his work, alien is his work. Now, therefore, do not scoff, or your bonds will be made stronger. For I have heard a decree of destruction from the Lord of God of hosts upon the whole land. Here ends the reading. In this text, Isaiah seems to be suggesting, or maybe just outright saying, that Israel is mocking, or scoffing is the English translation that I've read, God. And in a pretty grand ways, too, because there is a sense in this text that the people of Israel feel that they can secure their own future from the attacks of their enemies, because that's what's going on in all the prophets. All the prophets, the people of God, are being attacked by someone, whether it be the Assyrian Empire, the Persian Empire, or the Babylonian Empire, one of the three of them. They're being attacked by a foreign enemy. And in this text, the Israelites have this sense that they can secure their own future and protect themselves from their enemies because they feel as though they have somehow made a deal with death itself. They have an agreement with death. And think of that like quite literally. I think in my study Bible it even said possibly through necromancy, which is kind of terrifying. They feel that they have an agreement with death that they have made, and so they don't need God because they don't need to fear death anymore from all this war and conflict. And so God says, in effect, you may feel you have an arrangement with death, a deal with death, if you will, but I created death, right? Death is a creature of mine because it exists within the reality which you live. And so, as a consequence, as it's always been, there's only one rock, one foundation upon which you or any life can be built or saved. And that rock is me, you fools. All other foundations, quote unquote, all other shelters or deals that you think you have made that's going to keep you secure and safe is going to fall apart and fail you, period. So don't mock me, God, with what you think are these strong shows of force because you think you've made some sort of deal, some strong spiritual cosmic deal with death. Malarkey. That's nonsense. Thinking somehow you can avoid death and be prosperous on your own without me, your God. You can't do that. You're wrong. I, God, am your only salvation, your only refuge, your only strength. And what gets kind of left out of these verses we read today is what leads up to this. Like, well, why would God's people mock God like this? What would give them such an idea that they could do this? Well, what leads up to these verses, this mocking of God, is excess, and both literally and figuratively, drunkenness in this excess, right? Because as much as today people might not think of alcohol as a luxury, or even excess of alcohol a luxury, because of just our day and age, both alcohol and especially alcohol in excess is a luxury. And so the drunkenness goes beyond just physically being drunk. It's this intoxication of like, look at how successful and powerful and profound we are by ourselves, by our own merits, our own work, our own hands. And so this mentality is what leads up to our verses today. The people of God are intoxicated by their own successes and literal libations, actual alcohol, and basically say in both word and deed, in the beginning of chapter 28, we don't need to fully rely on you, God. We're fine. Like you give us all these teachings, whatever. We're fine. We just need a little bit of you here and there, and that's it. And so God, through Isaiah, warns the people of God otherwise in the text that we read today. So what this text says about us as human beings, right, and that I mean that to us too, not just the people in Isaiah, is that we are very much capable of trusting in what we believe are our own abilities and successes over God. So one more time, we as human beings are very capable, susceptible of trusting in what we see as our own successes and our own abilities over God. Even though, did you make yourself? Did you make the world? Your life is not your own, right? And yet, it's just human nature, call it sin if you will, that we are so susceptible of trusting ourselves and our own ability over God and basically saying, God, you can take a back seat, right? So we as humans can easily think and scoff God saying, I've got this, God. you just take a back seat, right? I'll let you know when I need you. And this sinful attitude leads to bondage and destruction, says Isaiah today. That's how the reading we read in this video ends. And so with this reality and warning of misplacing our trust and its consequences in mind, I would have you ponder this as you watch this video. In what aspects of your life are you most likely to put trust in yourself and in your own abilities over God? In what aspects of your life are you most likely or more often to put trust in yourself and your own abilities over God? Or said differently, in what parts of your life do you spend the least amount of time thinking about God, praying to God, talking about God, or just simply asking yourself, how could God be honored from this area of my life? I mean, if you've never thought like, gee, how is my golf game, or my, time spent on my boat at my cabin, or, my sleeping, or my mowing my grass, or going to work, or hanging out with my friends, or grocery shopping, or I don't know, it doesn't matter. It could literally be something seemingly mundane. If that's this place that you least think about yourself, how could God be honored in this area of my life, or maybe honored more? Maybe that's kind of the beginnings of your saying, God, I've got this. I don't need you here. Right? And then I list a bunch of stuff. Is it work? Right? Is it play? Is it finances? Is it relationships? Is it politics? Is it serving others, or maybe a lack of actually serving other people? When's the last time you volunteered to help other people? Is it about how you take care of your body or don't? Or other areas that I've left out? I'm just trying to get you thinking, right? All of this and more. God should be at the center of it all. We should never say, "Oh well, I'm not frivolous with my money. I'm not misspending it, so I don't think about God much." Then, okay, or maybe you're like on top. I was going to say, but maybe you don't even give. But maybe A, you don't spend money frivolously, and B, you do give, but when's the last time you've asked yourself, well, could I give more? Or how am I giving? Or where else might God like me to give? Or how might I shift my giving? Or how might I increase my giving, not in the dollars cents way, but maybe I rely on giving money too much and I need to give more of myself. There's always room to discern more. And so what's that one area in your life where you're like, I've put that on autopilot, and I've left God out of that for a long time? And maybe try and pick up on one of those areas and ask yourself, how can I honor God more in this area of my life? How can I make God more central to my thinking and behaving in this area or areas? Be bold. Can't think of the word, but be bold. Pick more than one. But if it's really scary to try and think about this, then focus on just one. And then when you've got that down, maybe move on to another. But how can you make God more central to an area or areas of your life? All right. And so why think about all that? The positive side of all of this, as you do this, rests this question. We seek to answer these questions out because I want you to now answer this question. This is a positive side. This isn't something you have to do, but really to get the feeling of why you'd want to do this is, what would it mean to you to know that your whole life was sacred and reflected Jesus and God's love? Think about that. What would it mean to you to be able to trust that every aspect of your life was sacred and holy, meaning God showed up for you and for others in every moment of your life, and that you reflected the love of Jesus and God to others in every aspect of your life, what would that mean to you? And if you're thinking to yourself, that doesn't mean anything to me, Pastor. I mean, I'd be surprised that you're watching these videos. I would hope, that would mean something to you. And if it does, then, build on that. And if it doesn't mean a whole lot, then where do you get purpose from your life? And why wouldn't you want that purpose to be holy and sacred and something beyond yourself? I think we all crave for that a little bit. So ponder on that. And so, if in fact that last question of what would it mean to you to know that all of your life is sacred and holy and reflects the love of God to others, if that question excites you, right, that's why we're pondering all the ones I asked before about working on those areas of where we might leave God out of. Okay, moving on to Matthew chapter 26, verses 6 through 13. Now, while Jesus was at Bethany in the house of Simon, the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very costly ointment, and she poured it on his head as she sat at the table. But when the disciples saw it, they were angry, and they said, "Why this waste? For this ointment could have been sold for a large sum, and the money given to the poor." But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why do you trouble the woman? She has performed a good service for me. For you always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. By pouring this ointment on my body, she has prepared me for burial. Truly I tell you, wherever this good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her." Here ends the reading. So I'm going to do something I don't normally do, and I'm going to work a little bit beyond the text today, because this scene takes place in all the Gospels, but in a little bit different way in each one. And so I want to shift beyond Matthew to the other Gospels where there's different details, because I want to tie the scene. I want you to think more of the scene than all the exact words that were just read, of this ointment being poured out on Jesus as being, more important than all the little details. I want to focus on this scene and this image of keeping God at the center of your life that we talked about earlier. Because this scene in Matthew, I think, gives a different approach to thinking about keeping God central to our whole lives and what that might feel like or look like. Because another way of thinking about this kind of holistic, sacred, Jesus-illuminating living is like this: an aroma. An aroma. I mean, think to yourself when you walk into a house that has freshly baking cookies going on. Oh my gosh, cookies baking in the oven is the most amazing thing ever. You might not even be able to see the oven. You may not even be able to feel the heat. People may not even say to you cookies are being baked, but you know there are cookies. And that evokes a feeling, a sense of, probably some good nostalgia. It might even make you feel more at home and welcome, all from an aroma, right? I mean, this is the power of aroma, right? So, and this is what it can look like or feel like to live this faith that has God, has Christ, at the center of all areas of life, trying to honor God and point to Jesus and show people Jesus in all parts of our life. It becomes like this cookie aroma when we, enter a house. So we don't get this actual description of the aroma in Matthew, but as I said, in the other Gospels, we are told that the aroma of the perfume of this woman, or ointment of this woman, it fills the whole house. And as followers of Jesus Christ, as those called to be Jesus for others, right, we are always working toward making Jesus fill our whole house, so to speak, in air quotes, to fill our whole house, our whole being and our whole presence where we're at in the world. Wherever we go, we want the aroma of our faith, which is invisible but noticeable, to fill up all the spaces and relationships that we inhabit. That's the goal of our faith. We want people walking away from our presence, having breathed in something sweet, taken in something sweet, having filled their life and their lungs with a loving presence of Jesus, not easily seen with the eye, but overwhelmingly noticeable, like a strong, pleasant aroma, right? And as people get a sense of that and a feel for that, right, then we name for them, this is Jesus, this is who Jesus is, so that they can love Jesus too. We want to be as Jesus for others in such a way that wherever we go, we transform space into one of love and grace that makes God feel near in both word and deed. We live in a world where the idea of God being physically present for people in moments of their life, like tangibly so, just seems impossible. And so that's why I love this aroma image, because it speaks to both realities. God is in fact real and present, but like an aroma, it's not easily noticeable in the ways that we'd like to think about easily noticeable, right? Something that we can touch and something that we can easily see and identify. But an aroma is different, right? It's invisible, and it's a smell, but getting beyond physical sense, it's something in the air, right? It's tangible, but it's not. You can't wrap your hands around it, right? And it evokes feelings, and stays with you too. It's powerful, but it's not tangible in the physical sense, right? And that's kind of how God is. God can be physical too, but that generally happens through you and I. All right. So yeah, we want to transform a space through our aroma, if you will, aroma, right? That makes God feel near in both word and deed. That's why I love this scene. That's kind of what's going on here. At least if we take all the gospel accounts together, there's this act of dedication, of love, of faith of this woman in such a way that there actually is an aroma because of the perfume, but there's also an aroma of her faith, of her love for Jesus, and Jesus' love for her that fills the room. It's a generosity of love that goes both ways, that it's like, we get so fixated on some of the tangible things in front of us sometimes that we miss the love of Jesus right in front of us. Well, what about the poor, Jesus? And it's like, hey, like this is important too. this type of love and abundance and generosity for me is important too, and you need to live your lives this way. All right, so with this aroma imagery in mind, I'm going to end this section by asking this, and it's related to the last questions in the other section too. What one space in your life, right, to try and keep it simple and succinct, what one space in your life can you try and inhabit in a new way that fills the space with the sweetness and the aroma of Jesus? And please, please, please don't think about how you can do this on Sunday morning at church. Like, go beyond Sunday morning in church, please. For the love of God, literally. What one space in your life outside of church can you inhabit in a new way that fills that space with the aroma, with the presence, with the tangible love of Jesus that is noticeable, right? That you can then point to and say to people, here is God with you. Here is Jesus with you. Here is Emmanuel, right? To use that word from Matthew. And if you're like, I don't know what space, Pastor, well then what relationship? Is it a neighbor, a friend, a family member, right? And then again, as I end the last section, why do we do this, right? Because these are not transactional things. These are transformational things we do. We do this. We seek to be this aroma and fill these spaces as Christ, because there's a blessing promised for us in this reading as we do this. That is a blessing for us and others as we do it. As we as the text tells us, when we inhabit space in this way, and we become this aroma, and we anoint people in this way with grace and generosity and the presence of Christ, the text tells us that we prepare ourselves, right? Jesus says, she is preparing me for burial. Now, again, I'm going to speak about this a little bit metaphorically, like the aroma. Somewhat literally, but somewhat metaphorically, right? Because burial is representative of loss, right? And hardship and suffering. Not just physical death and physical burial, but it also incorporates loss and hardship and suffering. And so in this life, there will always be more loss, more hardship, and more suffering. And I don't say that to be a Donnie Downer, just to be descriptive. That's the truth. The longer you live, the more loss and hardship and suffering you will face, because that's a part of life. And so to be the aroma of Christ for others, and prepare people for their burials, right? This loss, this suffering, this hardship, so they are not overcome by it, then is a great blessing, because that's what being this loving presence can do. When people have a sense of God with them in all things, especially hardship, right? Which is what happens when you are this aroma for people, because it fills their whole life, not just the good stuff, but all of it. You prepare them for all walks of life, including the hardest, which are those where there's loss and suffering and hardship. And it's not just a blessing for them, but for you, because you not only prepare them, but you prepare yourself. So I just say to you, God bless you in figuring out how to make God, make Jesus more central in one new area in your life, where you can just fill that space with the love of Jesus in a new way, so that both you and the people you are around are prepared for both the hardships, but even the joys. So God bless you and all that. Again, I say peace be with you, and I will talk to you tomorrow.